They call him the Antichrist, the emperor who burned Rome to build a palace worthy of a king.
Nero was trying to demonstrate he was a god.
His name is attributed to the number 666, the biblical sign of the beast. He is remembered for one great disaster. But is there another side to Rome's notorious devil? In 64 AD, Rome is overcrowded and desperately poor. A disaster waiting to happen. On July 19th, tragedy strikes. A spark ignites in the heart of the empire and threatens to bring Rome to her knees. Before the flames die down, fire destroys more than half the city. This one event gives Nero the unique opportunity to rebuild Rome. But the ambitious emperor goes one step too far. Nero is at his seaside villa when the fire breaks out. Flames erupt in the Circus Maximus, Rome's largest sporting venue forms a mile-long track of timber, and its seats provide the ultimate fuel. Within minutes, flames spread the entire length of the circus and jump to the nearby Palatine Hill, the Beverly Hills of ancient Rome. Fire climbs Rome's hills and descends again into her valleys. The city is an inferno.
People were running out of their houses, apartment buildings, screaming, looking for each other, asking for help, trying to help people who were in need of help, looking for a way out in the middle of this incredible noise, in streets that were filled with smoke, not being able to orient themselves where they were, and often running right into danger and flames and destruction.
The fire dies down after 6 days. The city is devastated. Many think the worst is over. But the blaze ignites again. Flames spread from neighborhood to neighborhood, devouring everything in sight. Rome burns for 9 days. The devastation is massive.
The fire of '64 is an outstanding event. It's a rare event. Fires before then were frequent in Rome, but not on this scale. Most of the city is destroyed. It has to be almost rebuilt totally.
Three of Rome's 14 districts are completely destroyed. 7 are reduced to mangled ruins. Only 4 remain intact. It's the perfect opportunity for a builder. Too perfect. Rumors begin to spread that the fire is an opportunity the emperor created for himself. Legend says that as Rome burned, Nero sat on his balcony, singing the fall of Troy, with the city suffering as his backdrop. But like many accounts of Nero's life, it's hard to separate fact from fiction. Nero's rise to power in 54 AD is shrouded in intrigue and deception. In Rome, murder can be the quickest way to the top. And Nero's mother has aspirations for her son. To make sure he is Rome's next emperor, Agrippina likely poisons her own husband, the Emperor Claudius. At 17, the young emperor takes the throne. But Nero is too young to rule alone. Instead, his mother and advisors control the empire. Under their watch, Nero's early years are tactful. The emperor is willing to share power, for now. As an act of diplomacy, he returns authority to the Senate. But not for long. Nero wants to rule on his own. His drive for power forces his mother into the shadows. The Senate will be next. In imperial Rome, the emperor does not rule alone. He shares power with Rome's senators. It's a delicate balancing act, one that most emperors never master.
You have a series of emperors who are inclined to take advantage of their position. Tiberius, Caligula, to some extent Claudius, and certainly Nero.
Nero wants absolute power to do whatever he wants. What he wants to do is everything artistic. Rather than spend his days in the Senate, the emperor races chariots and trains his voice.
Nero was famous for his interest in poetry, in singing.
Under Nero, there is almost a kind of free-for-all in terms of Roman society. We have an emperor who's literally acting like the lowest segments of Roman society, but here he is at the apex of Roman society.
For now, the emperor keeps his performances private. But clearly, Nero is an artist, not a ruler. The emperor's creativity extends to architecture and design. Building becomes one of his most ambitious endeavors. All emperors endow the city with public monuments. Nero's rival the greatest. One of his key contributions is a massive bath complex. Its design is simple, but revolutionary.
It was an innovative moment in architecture. Nero's architects developed a new kind of plan for a bath building, one that was completely symmetrical.
Nero's baths earn the emperor a place in history. Every future imperial bath is modeled after his.
So the baths of Caracalla, the baths of Trajan, the baths of Diocletian are all direct descendants of the baths of Nero.
The baths are the beating heart of Roman social life. They are a small oasis in a chaotic city. By the time Nero runs the empire, Rome is a city without a plan. Thousands come from all across Europe and the Mediterranean looking for opportunity. They cram themselves into just 10 square miles. The city's narrow, twisting streets are crowded, dirty, and dangerous. With so many to house, apartment buildings called insula rise to heights of 7 or 8 stories. They are recipes for disaster. Timber frames hold up walls of rubble and mortar. Wood fills the building. 2 insula share only one thin wall. With inadequate support, tension causes collapse, a frequent event in the ancient city. These areas are breeding grounds for calamity, especially fire.
It was very, very easy for a fire to start ignite all of the timber work in the construction and spread the fire very rapidly to the entire neighborhood.
Fires are a daily event in the ancient city. Accounts record up to 100 a day. Rome is divided into 14 regions. There is one fire station for every 2 regions. Each fire station is assigned 1,000 firemen, called vigiles. It's their job to protect the city. They patrol the streets, acting as both police force and fire brigade.
It was very dangerous work. Aside from inadequate means of confronting them, fires always reached vast proportions because the structures of the time contained a great deal of wood. When a fire reached the 2nd floor, it became almost impossible to control. Consequently, it would spread, usually from rooftop to rooftop.
For Rome, fire becomes the enemy within. By 64 AD, Rome is a disaster waiting to happen. Nearly every city in the ancient world has defensive walls. Every city but Rome. As the Mediterranean's superpower, her position is secure. Yet, as the city grows and fires are commonplace, the emperors decide to build walls to protect their monuments.
The Forum of Augustus is built right up against the Suburra in order to protect the Forum buildings from catching fire. Augustus constructed a huge firewall along the perimeter of the Forum.
Climbing nearly 100 feet above the Forum's floor, the wall is built using enormous blocks of peperino tuff. Local building materials are key to Roman architecture. Tuff is found throughout the city. It's ideal for fireproofing, but too expensive to be used on a large scale. At the base of the Palatine Hill, Dr. Clementino Pinella finds evidence of tuff's fire-resistant nature. She uncovers traces of the fire of 64.
This house belonged to someone wealthy. To make these small cubes of tuff, you had to cut each one by hand. Also, to lay them in wasn't easy.
This volcanic stone is mainly reserved for Rome's elite. They use it to protect their own property from fire. But not all fires in the ancient city are accidental. Real estate in Rome is big business. And some find clever ways of cashing in.
It's possible that people who were interested in plots of land would in fact start fires, buy the property at a cheap price, and then redevelop the property to make a profit.
Some wonder if the fire of 64 is the world's first biggest speculation. As the city burns, rumors spread. Maybe Rome's Great Fire is no accident. The historian Tacitus writes, "Nobody dared fight the flames. Attempts to do so were prevented by menacing gangs. Torches, too, were openly thrown in by men crying that they acted under orders. Perhaps they had received orders, or they may just have wanted to plunder unhampered." In the fire's wake, fingers point to the emperor. Nero has been blamed for the fire of 64 for nearly 2,000 years. Though today scholars wonder if Nero deserves an acquittal.
We do know that fires were intentionally set in ancient Rome. But did Nero intentionally set fire to Rome? I think it's highly unlikely.
There are three pieces of evidence in Nero's defense. The emperor has an alibi, no motive, and his primary accuser is biased. Our main account of the fire of 64 comes from the historian Tacitus. But Tacitus isn't an impartial witness.
When Tacitus tells the story of the fire of 64 AD, we have to keep in mind that there is this bias. Tacitus is a member of the aristocratic class that resents the fact that it has to share power with an emperor.
The emperor isn't even in Rome when the fire begins. Nero is at Antium when flames ignite the capital. He only returns to Rome when fire threatens his own property. But Nero's return is in vain. The fire destroys the palatial estate he is working on, his Domus Transitoria.
The Domus Transitoria was also substantially damaged in the fire of AD 64, and Nero can't have been happy about that. But he does take it as an occasion to rebuild on an even grander scale, and the result is the Golden House, the Domus Aurea.
The Domus Aurea is the biggest piece of evidence condemning Nero. It will be the largest palace Rome has ever seen. It will also be Nero's downfall.
Historians blame Nero for having started the fire of 64 because Nero subsequently used vast portions of the destroyed city to build the Domus Aurea.
Nero's Golden House is so ambitious, it leads many to think the emperor wants more than a pleasure palace. To the elite, Nero wants to forge a new Rome, a city to be named after him, Neropolis.
When Nero perceived that the popular mood was against him, when rumors were saying it's Nero who started the fire, that's when Nero understood that he needed to find a scapegoat.
He finds one in a new religious sect, a group calling themselves Christians. Justice in Rome is meant to be a public spectacle. As always, Nero puts on a great show. To punish the Christians, he burns them as torches in the night and crucifies them in his circus near the Vatican Hill. St. Peter is his most famous victim. According to legend, he is crucified upside down in the middle of Nero's circus. The apostle's body is taken down and buried on the Vatican Hill. His tomb becomes a shrine. The site will eventually live on as St. Peter's Basilica. Later, believers forever brand Nero an enemy of God. But is it a title the emperor deserves?
There's an alternative theory that the Christians may have set the fire of AD 64 as a way of provoking the end of the world, the apocalypse.
Prophecies spread through early Christian communities. One in particular is ominous. It predicts the destruction of the great city when the star Sirius rises in the night sky. In 64 AD, the star rose on the same day that Rome began to burn. It's possible that early followers of Christ set fire to the city in order to fulfill the ancient prophecy. If the Christians did burn Rome, Nero's punishment is prescribed by Roman law. But the list of suspects doesn't stop with the emperor or the Christians. There's a third possibility.
Given the building techniques at the time, the quality of construction, and the amount of wood involved in building houses and apartment buildings in Rome, it's the city itself which is the cause for the great conflagration of 64.
With 100 fires a day in a city built of wood, it was only a matter of time before it all went up in flames. In the fire's wake, Nero does everything he can to make sure Rome's recipe for disaster isn't repeated. He rebuilds the city, making it safer than before. But in the end, his efforts will be forgotten. Ancient sources paint Nero as a madman. But accounts are conflicting. Nero's reign is smeared by a series of murders and suicides which historians use to condemn the emperor. Now scholars believe Nero may have been acting in self-defense. The emperor is part of a ruling dynasty with a long history of double dealing. Each generation vies for power. Plots, deception, and murder become the family business. From the emperor to the outcast, no one is safe.
A lot of the family murders that we read about under Nero may all have been really politically motivated. These family members may have been actively plotting against Nero.
Plots are likely spun by those closest to the emperor, even by his own mother. Agrippina isn't content to remain in the shadows. Some say she plots to overthrow her son. Allegedly to save himself, Nero does the unthinkable. He orders his mother's execution. According to legend, Agrippina asks to be stabbed in the womb, the place that bore Nero. Rome's senators are thankful that the emperor escapes his mother's plot. But they won't be for long. With Agrippina out of the way, Nero flaunts his eccentric personality. He is an actor, musician, and performing artist, and eventually takes his art public.
Imagine your emperor, the ruler of the known world, and not just reciting a poem or playing the lyre, but he's actually performing these tragic roles, and many of them are tragic female roles. And he really had to train to do them. I mean, this wasn't just something he was doing as an amateur.
Nero, the emperor of Rome, performs on stage and competes in theatrical competitions. Rome's elite are appalled, but the people love him.
The people appreciate an emperor to the extent that the emperor is capable of providing them with food and entertainment.
Nero showers the commoners with money and games. It's their allegiance he wants, not the Senate's. But in Rome, emperors aren't absolute rulers. Rome's aristocracy doesn't settle for second place.
There is a constant undercurrent of conflict between the Roman aristocracy, which used to manage the Roman state throughout the Republican period, and the emperor.
Nero rethought what it meant to be a Roman emperor and ruler of the entire Mediterranean world. He was really thinking in terms of kingship and royalty.
The emperor plays a dangerous game. Nero's alienation of Rome's aristocracy eventually costs him everything, including his reputation. Rome's elite brands Nero a villain, an arsonist, and an opportunist. But are they titles the emperor deserves? Surprisingly, in the city's darkest hour, it's Nero who rises to the occasion. The fire of 64 devastates Rome's population. Tens of thousands are destitute.
People had nothing to eat, nothing to drink, very few possessions. They needed a place to stay.
To alleviate their suffering, Nero orchestrates a full-scale relief effort. The emperor imports grain and slashes its price. He converts his own gardens into homeless shelters and provides incentives for removing debris. The city clears and the work of rebuilding begins. Nero lifts Rome from her ashes. But his plans for the city are shrouded in controversy. Today, Nero's impact on Rome is debatable. Some think the emperor wanted to transform the city. Others say Nero wanted to take Rome for himself.
Nero was not so interested in changing the urban layout of Rome. He wanted something for himself. He wanted a new palace. He wanted to possess the half of Rome. That's what he did.
Until now, the main archaeological evidence of Nero's rebuilding has been the Domus Aurea. It leads experts to think Nero was after self-glorification. But Dr. Antonio Insalico has evidence supporting Nero's impact on the city at large. His discovery lies 30 feet below modern-day Rome, in the ancient complex of Vicus Caprarius. Here, Dr. Insalico found a brick stamp.
The stamp itself dates to the time of Nero. The use of bricks began before Nero, but it's really in the Neronian era that brick production becomes impressive.
The discovery is in Nero's favor. It seems the emperor wanted to make Rome a safer city. Nero's drive to prevent future disasters leads him to exploit technological developments. In the fire's aftermath, Nero turns to brick-faced concrete. It's a move that creates a new industry and forever changes the face of Rome.
Under Nero, brick production reaches a level that can be defined as industrial.
Roman brick factories become the assembly lines of their day. The average worker eventually produces over 60,000 bricks a year. Nero's new building codes change the face of Rome. Timber-framed walls are replaced by brick-faced concrete. 2 buildings are forbidden from sharing a single wall. Building heights are regulated. Streets become wider. Porticos are added to buildings, enabling firemen to reach upper stories. Tacitus writes, "These changes were welcomed for their practicality, and they beautified the new city."
Tacitus has to admit that after the fire, Nero himself is the one who transformed the city into a truly impressive world capital. Nero must have had this kind of important impact on the city if Tacitus himself says it and has to admit it.
Nero transforms Rome, but in the process, the emperor takes a little something for himself. In the fire's wake, Nero clears a third of the city for his own use. He takes the heart of Rome to build the largest palatial estate any European capital has ever seen. The fire of 64 swept through what eventually is called the Valley of the Colosseum. It's a piece of prime real estate in downtown Rome, one that Nero claims for himself. The emperor uses the area to build his Domus Aurea. It's an oasis of parklands and pavilions, centered around a man-made lake. Today, the lake is the site of an important discovery. Most scholars believe that in antiquity, a natural lake already existed in the heart of the valley, that Nero simply encased it with promenades. But Dr. Rosella Ray has found evidence of something else.
Beneath the Colosseum, in the lowest part of the amphitheater, are the remains of houses dating to the late Republican and early Imperial periods. They show traces of the Great Fire and were destroyed by Nero to create the Domus Aurea.
Dr. Ray's discovery changes the map of ancient Rome and provides more evidence of the fire's devastation. It also means that Nero confiscated private property to construct an artificial lake. What the fire doesn't destroy, Nero knocks down. The emperor uses weapons of war to clear away the remains of Roman houses.
Fu questo, evidentemente,
Clearly, this created a hostile climate and a hatred for the emperor.
cittadini di Roma per il loro imperatore.
A team from the University of Rome uncovers the beginning of Nero's mammoth complex.
We have found huge foundations on cement of the monumental Sacra Via that was leading to the entrance of Nero after the fire of 64 AD.
The discovery confirms Nero's grand schemes and his changes to the city. Nero widens Rome's most sacred street. He lines it with porticos and transforms it into a grand boulevard leading to his own front door. It's a controversial move.
People from the Forum walking up the new Sacra Via, they had in front of them a huge entrance in his new palace, and on top of that entrance they could see this monumental colossal statue that represented him like a god.
Gilded in gold and standing 12 stories tall, Nero's Colossus can't be missed. It's the ultimate symbol of the emperor's power.
The Golden House becomes in some ways the ultimate expression of the new conception of what it meant to be an emperor that Nero had been continuously working on. No other member of the elite could construct something like this. So they were threatened, I think, by things like the Domus Aurea.
The Domus Aurea is an orgy for the senses. Ancient historians tell of gem-encrusted walls and gold-leaf decorations. Ivory-paneled ceilings shift to drop perfume and flower petals on guests below.
In the silence of the rooms, to hear the music of the fountains. This house aroused the sense of smell, the scent of flowers, the music of water, when very often architecture is simply mute.
The Domus Aurea is Nero's finest surviving work of art. It's also a piece of engineering genius.
The entire subsequent history, really, of Western architecture hinges on one single development, and that is the octagon room in the Domus Aurea. That's how important it was as a work of architecture and what an impact it had on subsequent developments.
His creation is a complete explosion of light and form, never seen before. The dome will sit upon an open rotunda. It's a risky move, but highly theatrical.
To enter into a rotunda with completely empty walls must have been a great surprise.
The architects, Severus and Celler, use a system of arches and buttressing designed to hold everything in place. The dome's downward thrust is distributed into its piers by a system of flat brick arches. The piers are held in place by adjoining rooms. This enormous vault begins as an octagon and ends as a circle, a geometric change that no one had ever attempted.
Ancora oggi,
Even today, the octagonal hall is a revolution in architecture. It is profoundly different than every other Roman vault.
Nero is the first builder to focus on such innovative interior space. Ever the artist, he pays particular attention to light.
nella sala ottagona,
In the octagonal hall, light enters through the windows. It enters through the oculus. But above all, it caresses the vault's exterior, enters into the adjoining rooms, and bounces back into the octagonal hall through the open walls of the rotunda.
tamburo.
Nero's play with light is designed to illuminate what may have been the world's first sculpture museum. Whether or not the Domus Aurea was open to the public is unclear. For centuries, scholars assumed Nero's golden house was used by the emperor alone. Today, that theory is being challenged.
Actually was very public, and there were thoroughfares that transversed the Domus Aurea. So people were walking through it, they were enjoying it. It was a kind of magnificent architectural stage backdrop for Nero.
After the Domus Aurea, ancient historians will accuse Nero of anything. Their most heinous accusation, that Nero murders his pregnant wife. It is said that in a fit of rage, Nero kicks her to death.
All of the historians who are writing about Nero's reign are hostile towards him and his memory. So we have to take with grains of salt, in a way, the stories that are told about Nero's murdering various members of his family.
What's known for sure is that the Domus Aurea is the last straw for Rome's aristocracy. It won't be long before Nero joins his wife in the afterlife. The Roman Empire is on the brink of financial ruin. In 68 AD, war rages in Judea, and Western legions are in revolt. At home, the emperor remains unfazed. Nero is busy training his voice. It's a fatal mistake. The Senate has had enough. They declare Nero a public enemy. Rather than face the executioner's hand, the emperor, at only 30 years old, takes his own life. According to legend, Nero is dramatic to the end. It's said that with his last breath, he utters the words, "What an artist the world is losing." For centuries, mourners paid tribute to what may have been Rome's most controversial emperor. Despite this popularity, Nero undergoes the ultimate smear campaign.
Nero is subjected to memory sanctions, what is often popularly called condemnation of memory. So as a result, his posthumous memory is really manipulated in a negative way.
The city's new leaders do everything they can to wipe Nero off the map. In the end, his influence over Rome prevails. After Nero's death, power finally rests with Vespasian, the first emperor of the Flavian dynasty. Like emperors before him, Vespasian begins his own building project. It will take 3 emperors to finish the job, all of them from the Flavians. They construct the largest amphitheater in the known world. Their chosen site, Nero's Lake. It's a bold statement. The Flavians are giving Rome back to the Romans.
The Colosseum has been built to give back to Roman people the part of Rome which Nero took for himself.
The Colosseum is also built to give order back to Roman society. The arena seats are organized by social class. The elite are closest to the action. Slaves and commoners are seated at the top.
Nero really inverts Roman social order. When they build the Colosseum, the Flavians are attempting to reestablish the traditional social hierarchy.
Spectators can look across the arena to see where they belong in Roman society. Ironically, the Colosseum no longer bears the name of its builders. The ancients called it the Flavian Amphitheater. Today it gets its name from a Neronian creation. In the 2nd century AD, the Colossus of Nero is moved. Its new home is a pedestal in front of the Flavian Amphitheater. By the Middle Ages, the Flavians are forgotten. The amphitheater is called the Colosseum, named after the colossal statue that sits in front of it.
Visiting the Colosseum and the Domus Aurea, I feel that Nero won, and he won twice, because his splendid house is preserved almost intact. Because the Colosseum, the most famous monument in the world, in reality, bears the name of Nero. Nero won 2-0 over the Flavian emperors.
Nero's legacy is his influence over Roman art and architecture. In 104 AD, Nero's octagonal hall is buried by the Emperor Trajan. Trajan's architect, Apollodorus of Damascus, is the last to study Nero's secrets. Apollodorus likely uses them to design one of the most important domes ever built, the Dome of the Pantheon. The walls of the Pantheon's dome are not solid. Instead, like the octagonal hall, the Pantheon's dome rests on 8 piers. A series of arches and vaults distributes the dome's weight. It's a design likely taken from Nero. With buildings like the Colosseum and the Pantheon, Nero's influence over Rome continues, even after his death. Nero's efforts to fireproof the city continue on. Brick-faced concrete becomes the staple of Roman construction. From her insula to her monuments, this innovative building technique carries Rome through the fall of the empire. By the time of the Renaissance, Nero's influence over Rome is all but forgotten, until an ironic twist of fate. The popes rebuild an old church, the basilica dedicated to St. Peter. To decorate its walls, artists descend into the ruins of Nero's Golden House. There they find ancient works of wonder that they copy onto the walls of the Vatican. The fire of '64 forever changed the face of Rome, and its new architect remains a mystery.
We'll probably never know who the real Nero was. But I think that Nero's imprint on the city of Rome is really, in many ways, indelible. It's still here. It's still visible.
Nero's ultimate legacy is the transformation of Rome into the immortal city of power and glory.